Hi everyone, my name's Emma and I'm a fourth year arts law student at ANU and today we're joined with Associate Professor Greg Weeks for our latest edition of Ask an Academic. Now Greg, I know you as my teacher from admin law last year, but what other roles do you have at the uni? What other courses do you teach?
I did teach contracts last year. I think any of my former contract students will say that I was enthusiastic but not gifted as a contracts teacher. I've got a couple of smaller groups as well. I'm trying to develop an elective, an admin law elective, and also I've been asked to teach into the master's course later in the year.
Oh, great. Now, if I remember correctly from admin law last year, you had a bit of an unconventional pathway into law. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was a good but not excellent high school student, and when I left high school I had a what would now be an ATAR that got me into an arts degree but not into law, which I'd always wanted to do. So I started out doing an arts degree, and then my parents and sister moved to Chicago, which is not something I hear from a lot of friends and colleagues. So my family moved away from me, make of that what you will, and I found myself having to work to make sure the rent got paid and so forth, something that I'm sure a lot of students can understand, and a very poor arts degree followed. I don't know how many people can say they were invited not to come back by the German department at Sydney University, but I was.
It's impressive.
Yes. So I wasted that and was disappointed, and had tried to transfer into law but missed out narrowly. And after a few years I asked a friend who worked at UNSW Law School what I would need to do to transfer into law, and her answer was, you should probably see about getting a master's in some other field. So I did that at night. I was still working, and it took me 10 years to finally get to law school. What I had done in the meantime, I spent 5 years working in a video store, managing video stores, which seems now rather quaint, and another 5 years as the general manager of a wine business, which paid well but gave me cost price wine, which was very welcome. And my wife was studying at that stage, and so I helped support her through university. And at the end of that she said, well, if you think that you'd like to go to law school, now's a good time to do it. And so that's what we did. And of course, life being what it is, she was pregnant 5 minutes later and wasn't working, was dreadfully ill during her first pregnancy, so we lived like church mice as I went through law school, but it was a time that I remember with huge fondness.
Do you think you had any particular advantages or disadvantages coming to the law school a little bit later than some of your peers?
Yes, not being 18 was a huge advantage. Some people are born to do well at law school and in lots of other things at 18 and have that dedication. As I think I've made clear about my arts degree, I really didn't have that dedication at 18. I was much better coming in a little bit later, and found myself able to be good at things that some of my peers were not, just by having greater experience. So yes, I don't regret that aspect of it. I regret, having lost 10 years, but I'm sure I was a better student at 28 than I was at 18.
My next question is based on the fact that I think a lot of students approach admin law with a bit of trepidation. I think it's considered one of the more difficult compulsory courses. But what about admin law attracted you to it when you were in uni and made you think I might want to work in this field?
Sure. Admin law scares the pants off everyone, and I've worked at a few different law schools now, and I can tell you that it's the one constant. Nobody really looks forward to admin law, and that's because it's hard and has a lot of challenging concepts. It doesn't need to be that way, and over time at UNSW, word got around that it wasn't as scary as many people thought it was. The reason I got into it is because I did a shortened version, what would now be called a JD, but wasn't at the time, And so I did admin law in my second semester of first year, and I had a teacher who was at that stage nearing retirement age called Mark Aronson. And Mark is a very enthusiastic man, and he would say things like, now you have to listen to this case, this one's a riot, and it would be about somebody failing to get a license or a bias application or something fairly run-of-the-mill, but Mark's enthusiasm for it was, for me, infectious, and I liked it so much that he said, well, you can do a piece of assessment that's an essay of your own choice, just work with me and I'll help you develop it. So I did that and really enjoyed it, and I went back for an elective course with him, and that was great. And then I went back and did a research thesis with him, and it probably shouldn't surprise anyone to know that he and I are now co-authors of a book, but I felt just so much joy from the enthusiasm that he took from it right from the start.
That reminds me a bit of your teaching style in terms of admin law as well.
I have copied him shamelessly.
My next question is, you worked for a time as a solicitor at a large national firm. What can you tell us about that experience, particularly in comparison to your experience in teaching in academia?
Sure. I worked for Cause Chambers Westgarth, and I'm not unhappy about using their name because I have nothing bad to say about them. It was a good firm and I liked working there. It's a whole different kind of working to being an academic, and I liked the discipline of working on the matters that came before me, so I spent most of that time working as a litigator, which was great. You get to plan your time somewhat. You get to say, well, there's a case in 6 weeks before we're in court. What do I have to do before then? I spent a year in banking and finance. Apart from the fact that I'm functionally innumerate, it was very hard because the culture in BNF was to get in at 10:30 in the morning, have a spot of coffee, see someone for lunch, do a bit of wandering around the office, and really get into it in the afternoon. And then the client would send things to be done immediately at 4:30, and everyone would work till 3 a.m. And I had 2 small children at that stage, and it really didn't suit me very well. But litigation did, and I really enjoyed it. And the culture at Cause was, well, it's all a little bit of a waste if they have huge teams and everything, so I did most of my work working with one partner. The silliest example of this that I can give you is one day we were briefing a man who's now on the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and he said, well, it's just a directions hearing, I'm just going to send my reader, she's brand new, but she'll do. And my partner said, well, if he's just sending Carolyn, then you should go and brief her, instruct her rather, because I don't think it's necessary for me to go if James isn't going, so that's fine. We wandered down there with 5 minutes of experience between us. The other firm, which shall remain nameless, sent 5 junior lawyers, 3 senior associates, junior partners, senior partners, junior counsel, and Tom Bathurst, who is now the Chief Justice of New South Wales, and we were absolutely struck dumb with terror, but Mr. Bathurst was very kind and led our barrister through it, and she was endlessly grateful, and we both dined out on that experience for ages. But we got to do those kinds of things, whereas at some other big firms, junior lawyers photocopied.
Yeah, I can imagine. And finally, do you have any particular advice for law students at the moment who maybe aren't entirely sure what they want to do with their degree, or they're not entirely sure how to go about doing it?
Advice to law students is always really tricky, because the one thing that defines it is that there aren't as many jobs as there used to be, or rather there are, but there are many more people in competition for them. So deciding whether or not you want to be a practicing lawyer is a good start, and if your answer is that you don't know, then my advice is always give it a go for some time if you can. Because what I learned from 3 years was that I liked it very much, but when I got the chance to leave and do a PhD, I leapt at it, which I think is a clear indication that for all that I liked it, it wasn't what I wanted to do forever. So figure out exactly what you want to do. If you want to use your law degree as a pathway into something else, that's terrific, and it's certainly not time and effort wasted. As to which firm you try to land with, going and working for big firms is terrific. You learn a lot, but it's not the only way. So I have done and continue to be associated with a fairly small firm of only 2 partners in Sydney who do very interesting work. Their people all go home on time, nobody comes in on the weekend. There's a really nice culture about balance, which is a thing that you hear a lot from big firms, but they find it hard to practice under pressure from clients. So that kind of place can see you exposed to good work, not the kind of stuff you read about on the front page of the paper, but not everybody gets to do that. So even that kind of experience is well worth having if you're interested in finding out if you want to be a lawyer.
Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have, but thanks for joining us, Greg, and we'll see you next time for the next instalment of Ask an Academic.